morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Chad is already lively this morning. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking. Get your questions in. We got former Texas offensive lineman Tony Hills joining us here in just a little bit. Looking forward to that.
In the 2004 Rose Bowl against Michigan.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, speaking of Michigan, 3 days away. What are we thinking? It's a little over 72 hours away from kickoff.
Man, I'm thinking that it's going to be a barn burner, or it's going to. I mentioned it today. I spoke with a guy last night or yesterday afternoon named Doug Karsh. Doug is the voice of the Wolverines. He's the radio play-by-play guy, kind of their version of Craig Way. I've known Doug for 30 plus years because he used to host a radio show that focused on recruiting. So literally I would go back to this guy 30 years. He had something very interesting to say, Jerry and Blake, about the Michigan defensive front. He said he compared the Michigan defensive front the last 3 or 4 years to what Miami in the 90s used to put out, because he says it's not just the defensive. It's not just the down linemen. It's not just one or two guys. It's also the linebackers. They've got a number of different guys, he said, and it is deep, and they've recruited well at that position in particular. They also have a transfer linebacker, he said, that is just playing lights out right now, named Jashawn Barham from Maryland. And so they are, he said, look, that is no doubt the strength of this football team for Michigan. There are not expectations that Michigan will be a national title winner at this point. At the same time, he thinks that they do have a chance and should be expecting to make it into the college football playoffs, no matter who the quarterback is. He's like, look, this is a really talented defense. And there are pieces on offense that are great. And he mentioned Colston Loveland, the tight end. But, I did some research as well. Last 2 years, Jerry, only one team has scored more than 30 points against Michigan. And that was TCU in the national championship semifinal when the Horned Frogs put up 51. What did they do there? They spread Michigan out, right?
Yep.
They absolutely spread them out. We'll see if that's what Steve Sarkisian decides to do. The other teams that have had marginal success against Michigan are Ohio State. They've scored in the 20s the last 2 years. That's not great for Ohio State. That's like, 10 to 15 below their average. The other one was interesting, Jerry. Maryland the last 2 years has scored 27 and 24. And if you'll recall, Mike Locksley, the head coach at Maryland, was previously at Alabama, preceded Sark a little bit there. I think there may be a little something that Sark can glean from that he might be able to put into action there against Michigan. But we'll see.
It sounds like Quinn needs to wear a jersey with Tagovailoa on the back, and that'll do the trick.
Yeah, that'll do it, right?
Oh, man. All right. Well, the AP poll came out yesterday, and a little movement for the Longhorns, guys. Texas is now ranked number 3, Georgia number 1, Ohio State 2. As I said, Texas 3, Alabama 4, Notre Dame 5, Ole Miss, Oregon, Penn State, Missouri, and Michigan are your 6 through 10. Some others
did A&M receive a vote and other receiving votes at all, or did they not get anything? Are they out? They're done?
They probably got as many votes as they got points on the board against Notre Dame.
So let's be clear on this poll before we get to the good stuff. Well, actually, starting with the good stuff. So currently, A&M is looking up at Dabo, who I don't know how they're still top 25. NC State, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Iowa, better offense than A&M. Arizona, Kansas, LSU, 0 for 5 in last 5 home openers, but you're still looking up at them. Kansas State, not Bill Snyder's Kansas State. Mike Gundy, who you probably should have hired a couple times, and Oklahoma, whose offensive line was atrocious. So congrats on that.
Going for the jugular early.
No, it's only 8-17, Jerry. Come on. Give them a chance to wake up and get their coffee in them. I'm good with this list. I think it's all nice and everything. 3 plays 10 this week. We'll see if 3 deserves to be 3 or if 10 deserves to be higher. That's my take. It's nice that Texas moved up a little bit. Oregon moved down, yada, yada, yada. We can talk about that all we want. But the reality of life here is that they're gonna play football on Saturday, and we're gonna find out who deserves to be where between those two. That's one of the good things about these early season matchups between 2 different conferences and teams in the elite. It's why LSU, you could have had them in the top 5 or top 10 all season long. They go up there and USC beats them. Right? USC beats them in Las Vegas, so USC deserves to be ranked higher. Right? I mean, that's just the way it is. And so we do a couple of these games like this. Georgia deserves to be higher than Clemson. Just killed them. I don't know that Clemson deserves to be ranked, but those games like this are separators in the rankings, right? And Notre Dame moves up because of its win over A&M, convincing win over A&M.
The other thing is, look how many Big 12 teams there are in the poll. Interesting. I mean, you have 3, 4 in there, 5 counting Arizona, 5 in there. By the way, Tatura McMillan had an unbelievable game for Arizona. But 5 Big 12 teams ranked. Colorado plays all of them this year. I think 3 are on the road, by the way.
Colorado Nebraska is an interesting game this weekend.
It is. It really is. By the way, so another one is, if you look right now at this poll, Notre Dame has the easiest schedule left. I mean, USC's, we'll see at the end of the year, maybe USC. But again, with Notre Dame's win at A&M, I mean, if they go anything less than 11-1, they probably had a slew of injuries. Just look at their schedule. I mean, they're really good in the secondary, and they're good on defense. And their quarterback plays better than it was a year ago, and that'll prove out over time. But their running backs are really good, by the way. The Love kid's got tremendous feet. But they have the best schedule on here to really make some noise after week 1. Miami, are they going to keep from stumbling as they have in recent years? We'll see how big that win over Florida is. As Florida, when A&M goes to Florida in 2 weeks, what does that Florida team look like against A&M? I think that'll be telling for Miami fans on the Miami-Florida game in reality.
Yeah. Miami has a pretty easy schedule going forward.
Oh, but yes. The problem with Miami's schedule and Notre Dame's schedule is if you drop one of those games, people are going to immediately say, yep, that's an overrated team because their schedule's not tough.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is if you stub your toe, I mean, outside of Notre Dame with USC, right? And we'll see what Georgia Tech looks like as the season moves along. We're still early, but if you lose one of those games, then if you look at Miami's schedule, any game they lose at this point, you said, yep, that's the Miami we expected. Yep, they're overrated. That's the type of schedule Miami's got. There's pressure on that schedule because they're expected to win all those games now, whether it's reality or not.
Yeah, Missouri, another one with a very
Missouri's
easy
they got a really good schedule. They got a really good schedule when you have a really good offense and a 3rd-year or 4th-year starting quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, one other thing I wanted to talk about before we move on to the next subject here is The Athletic came out with some playoff projections. This kind of ties into what we were just talking about. And they have Texas at number 6 behind Georgia, Ohio State, Utah, Miami, and Oregon. Curious to get y'all's thoughts.
Well, go ahead, Bobby.
I'm just sitting there looking at Boise and wondering to myself why they're on it. They've got 2 Big 12 teams in there with Utah and Kansas State. That's a surprise to me. They only have 1 ACC team because Notre Dame is not counted as an ACC team. So I don't know. I guess they're saying that Georgia, Ohio State, Utah, Miami are their picks to win their conferences. Based on what I will say this, based on what I saw this weekend, you would have to give Miami the nod in the ACC right now. Do we all agree with that? I picked, it's funny. I picked Georgia Tech kind of on a whim. Post beating Florida State. Now that win over Florida State doesn't look so good for Georgia Tech, but I don't think Miami has any issues in the. Are there any teams? I mean, Virginia Tech. People were saying they're a dark horse for the ACC. They just lost to Vandy.
Yeah,
I mean,
North Carolina just lost Max Johnson for the season in game 1, who was an experienced quarterback. So now they got to have their young guy grow up. So Boise obviously is the G5 pick for everybody. You know who they play this weekend? Somebody said it in the chat. I was going to bring that up. Oregon. Here's why Boise, I think, is getting a lot of love. One, because they're the G5 name still. But if you haven't watched Boise, the running back, Janty, is a tremendous NFL prospect. I think he is out of Jacksonville, Florida. There's a shock. A physical running back from Florida. He had 20 carries in their season opener, scored 6 touchdowns, 267 yards. He's a really good player. He's the only back, I think, coming back that had 1,000 rushing and 500 receiving last year. He's a really good player.
Hey, Jerry, let's say thanks to our sponsor and then have you talk a little bit about recruiting because you've been on the road in Georgia and you got some really, really good stuff yesterday. But first, let's say thank you to our sponsor for Wednesday's Coffee and Football. That's Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, including ATV, and think you might be due compensation, reach out to Adam at loweylawfirm.com. That's loweylawfirm.com. Great thing about Adam, you can make the phone call, talk to him. It's no strings attached. Again, reach out, loweylawfirm.com. Thanks, Adam, for sponsoring On Texas Football.
Yeah, Jerry.
Hey, real quick, living rent free. Oh my gosh, this is an unbelievable memory. I remember LeGarrette Blount punching the Boise State player because Oregon's never beat Boise. That we'll see if they change that this weekend. But I remember that as well.
Tell us about where you were at yesterday over in Grayson, Georgia, Jerry.
Yeah, I'm staying up in Duluth. I'm here. I'm in the Atlanta area yesterday and today. Then I'm going to head a little south in Georgia after that. I'm actually staying in Athens tonight. Collar Stallions and I are going to give it a run late this afternoon, see a Georgia practice if we can get in. Get a little advanced scouting. Look, it's I was at Grayson High yesterday, and that's the home of Nick Brooks, the Texas offensive line commitment. We're going to start there with some clips and from a video interview that we're going to have up on Texas Football either today or tomorrow with Nick Brooks. I got about 7-minute interview with him. But here's some clips, and here's what he had to say, and then I'll tell you kind of my thoughts on him. And then we're going to get into Joseph Mbakchu, the defensive lineman, who I think is a stud, and a 2026 5-star linebacker who's visiting for the Georgia game. Where do you think you've improved most from junior to senior year?
My footwork. I'm training every day, if not every day, every 2 days. Just working on my footwork. I used to be a basketball player, so it kind of comes easy, but it's very hard still. Working on my footwork and hand placement. That's what I've been working on a lot lately.
Talk about this move to Grayson and how much that's helping you your senior year.
Moving to Grayson, it's helping me a lot. I mean, I've been here a month and a half, and I've lost 10 pounds already. So, I mean, just the tempo offense is really getting me ready for college, and just in a weight room, guys pushing me because it's other talent, big talent in there. So just, I don't know, a great atmosphere with a lot of coaches that have been to where I want to go.
Jerry, I got to ask you, those players, he makes those players next to him look small. But you told me that one of those players is going to Georgia Tech. And it's committed. One of them's committed to Florida that Texas is after. And he makes those guys look like they're not so big. Nick Brooks is a kid.
No doubt. Look, Nick Brooks is 6'7", 355, 360. Like he said, he's lost 10 pounds. His goal is to be 340 by the spring. I think this is a great move for him. We've talked about this, because he's moved so much from family job stuff. He hadn't had any football consistency, right? So he always plays since he misses time in the summer with the family moves, he has to play himself into shape the first half of the season. and he's already lost 10 pounds at Grayson. Grayson's a power program in the state of Georgia, 3 state titles since 2011. And he's got a chance, guys, to be really good because he is really focused. You could tell in practice. That last clip Bobby was talking about, if anybody watched them against Thompson, number 9 there, that's Andre Fuller going to Georgia Tech. Great motor, tremendous player. He'll outplay his ranking. Remember that guy. And then 97, Cisco said that's a big kid. That's Joseph Mbachu, the 6'4 and a half, 275, 280-pound defensive lineman that Texas just offered. And I think he has got a real chance, guys. I mean, his upside is through the roof. He's been playing 6 months. This is his first season in padded football. We'll have some clips of him for tomorrow morning show, or maybe we'll play that tonight on our live stream. But Joseph Mbachu is, man, he's a hell of a talent now. I'm just here to tell people that. He's got about an 82-inch wingspan, 10-inch hands. By the way, Nick Brooks, 83-inch wingspan, 10.5-inch hands. We put our hands up to each other on the video, which will be coming out soon. But Nick Brooks, he told me he was what kind of we knew, we hinted at. He'd been committed to Texas since right after his June official visit. He had a conversation with Sark and Flood and told him at that time he was coming. His mom was on board with it. So even with the move to Atlanta, I think that it gives anybody, and even the people recruiting him, a little pause for a second just to make sure things are still cool. But Nick Brooks wanted to be at Texas. And by the way, he did reveal, he was the karaoke winner on his official visit at Texas. And he's going to tell us about the song, his favorite song, and the song he sang. He wouldn't sing it on the video, which I told Nick, then you got to come on a live and do it. But he wouldn't sing the song for us on the video, but he did tell us what he sang to take the award during the official visit. But Mbachu will visit September 21st with the Grayson defensive coordinator, who's pretty close with Kenny Baker and Tashard Choice. And then we got to play one more. I know I got to stop talking because we got somebody who needs to talk coming up, but you got to play the Tyler Atkinson video. Okay, there's a 2026 5-star Grayson. And hide your children real quick, okay? Because this thing's about to get fast, physical, and ugly. There goes your first helmet flying. This is Tyler Atkinson. He visited Texas in June, and he is 6'2" and a change, 210. He's going to be a legit 5-star linebacker. He flies to the football, guys. His speed is ridiculous. He's going to visit once again with his parents for the Georgia game. I think Texas is in the top 5 there. I think they're working from behind, but this just shows you where the Texas program is because your competition is Georgia, Auburn, Clemson, Tennessee, Texas. I think those are the top 5. And it wouldn't shock me if Texas wasn't the top 3 team in this recruitment, but this is one bad dude, man. He's a junior. He's got 22.5 sacks in his career. He's already got 33 tackles, 4.5 sacks in 3 games this season. If you want to see a 5-star linebacker at the high school level, go watch Grayson play on a Friday night if you're in the Atlanta area. Ryan Nelson, I'm sure he's not on here, but he knows all about him.
Good stuff, Jerry. Good stuff. Hey, let's welcome in special guest, Longhorn national champion, Tony the Tycoon. He's got that listed there. Tony Hills. Welcome on Texas football, buddy.
Hey, how you doing, Bobby? Thank you for having me, man. Honored to be here, brother.
We appreciate you coming on, man. Hey, you are one of the players, one of the, I guess, 85 players to ever play against the Michigan Wolverines. Not sure if people realize that, but yeah, the Longhorns have only played Michigan once. The game coming up in Ann Arbor. We figured we'd ask somebody that has some experience in the matter to talk to us about it. What do you think about this game coming up, Tony? Texas versus the Maize and Blue.
It's funny. A good buddy of mine, Stevie Brown, is a Michigan Wolverine. He was a free safety for them. So him and I have been, we're getting ready to go back and forth with that. My thought process on the game is simple.
Hey, Tony, we've got your audio right now. Your video stuff. Your video stuff right now, buddy. We'll bring you out. You go back out and then log back in, and we should be fine.
Sounds good.
We should be fine. All right. Tony Hills will rejoin us here in a second. I think something happened on his desk there, guys, that got him going. Tony, by the way, I'll just give him a little background. Tony's originally from A-Leaf Elsick, was a top-rated tight end, Jerry.
Yep.
Out of the state of Texas. Tim Brewster started recruiting him. Then Brewster moved on to the NFL as an assistant coach. But Tony actually overcame one of the biggest injuries I've ever seen or heard of to actually then overcome it and be athletic and good enough of a player to go on and play another position in the NFL.
That's going to be my question for him with Cedric Baxter, the injury he's coming off of, kind of what all is in front of Cedric and what Tony went through. It's a good story.
Yeah, Tony had what many people thought was quote unquote drop foot.
Yeah,
which was a lack of a total lack of what I would call feeling or nerve function in the foot. So he couldn't actually feel where his foot was going. And at one point, I was told from behind the scenes, they had less than a 5% chance of ever playing football again. What did he do? Went out and had a big time NFL career. Tony, welcome back, buddy.
Yeah, hey, technology, man, you love it when it works, and you so much about it when it doesn't. No, man, to answer your question, so I don't get cut off again. I think the game is going to come down to two things, and maybe I'm biased, but the old school thought process is, we stop the run the ball, right? And so it's going to come down to the middle of the field. And when I say the middle of the field, I'm talking about the big guys. So defensively, being able to shut down Michigan's running game, obviously they have a wonderful back, making them one-dimensional, making them, beat us in the past. And if you're able to do that, then that allows, the people like Trey Moore and Anthony Hill and all of our phenomenal pass rushers to have opportunities to get to the quarterback. When you have the opportunities to get to the quarterback, that creates turnovers, right? And the more time that we're able to take away the ball, the better opportunities that we have offensively to put the ball in our playmakers' hands, that being Quinn Ewers and others, right? And so the way I see the game playing out is, from an offensive standpoint, can we establish the line of scrimmage on a consistent basis? If we can do that, then there's no reason why Texas doesn't walk in and win that game. And here's my thought process, guys. When I watched the game, Michigan versus Fresno State, I didn't see a dominance there. What I saw is a team that's trying to find itself. And when you're a team, I've been on teams trying to find themselves, right? And I can tell you that there's a false sense of confidence there when you have a win, right? And when you find a team that knows exactly who they are and they're going to play a smash mouth style of football for 4 quarters, you come to find out really quickly that, we're not as prepared and ready as we thought we were. So the only way that Texas loses this game is if Texas beats Texas. So you have to have we cannot have penalties and things that are self-inflicted. No false starts, right? No lining up offsides, illegal formations, things of that nature. The things that you can do that can hurt yourself as a football team. As long as we play clean football, I don't see why we don't win this game by double digits.
I love the prediction. Hey, Tony, I want to ask you this. Talk about, because we talked about this last year going into the Alabama game. When you're on the road, it's going to be 111,000. They're going to set an attendance record. Talk about communication. Jake Majors, how important his job is pre-snap for this Texas offense Saturday, because Cam Williams is a first-year starter at right tackle. You were once a first-year starting tackle, but there's some experience outside of Cam Williams. But talk about Jake Majors and that job in communication, how important that is going to be on the road in 110,000.
Man, I'm going to do you like Matrix. Mr. Hamilton, what a great question that you asked, right? So it reminds me a lot of my start against Nebraska. The communication is everything, right? Jake has to make sure that he's identifying the middle linebacker to be able to set the offense. I think that comes from a lot of film study, being able to get the looks in practice, just making sure you're able to see the nuances and I think Jake has an amazing understanding of what Sark and what Quinn wants to do, right? A lot of times what people don't understand about offensive line play is that center is an extension of both the quarterback and the head coach. I have to understand what it is that you're doing from a standpoint schematically so that I can set the front so that we understand how to pick up different looks. of course, defense is one of disguised blitzes, and if you watched Michigan last year, they were great at that, disguising who they want to come, who's coming, who's dropping. By Jake being able to identify safeties and understand who's backed up, who's covered, things of that nature, he can set the offense to where now the tackles understand, hey, when I see a linebacker that doesn't have a safety over the top, 9 times out of 10, I got this guy right in front of me. And from the tackle position, it's pretty simple. We're only going to have a gap responsibility inside, or we're blocking the man outside, period and point blank. For Cam, if we're talking about the individual game that Cam has to play, it's ball get off. You have to be, because they're probably going to go on silent count. You have to be able to time up the snap on point every single time, because if not, then the defensive end gets a jump on you, and that can create problems. So the way that you do that is making sure that in practice, right, they're getting the looks. I'm assuming Sark will have them, loud noises, how we used to do it. We'd have loud noises in the bubble to be able to try to emulate what we're going to see in the game. And just continue to work that cadence, continue to work that head movement so that we can time it up perfectly so that we're staying on cue. There's going to be situations to where it doesn't work all the time. That's just football, man. But at the end of the day, when you find yourself in those situations, bounce back, make sure that we're able to correct it and continue to move forward and and stay focused on what the goal is.
Hey, Tony, we have a viewer question for you here from Jackie McCardle. And he says, what are some of the similarities you see in this year's team versus the 2005-2006 team?
Leadership, not only from the top, but leadership as it pertains to the team captains, but also the team in general. I had a little tidbit where, actually they actually talked about this. And I was talking to my brother about this as well. I said, these guys are different. When you talk about playing a game and they're talking about the preparation starts now and they're jumping in cold tubs right after the game, I can promise you guys in 2005, when we won a game, we were not jumping in cold tubs. I'm gonna tell you, right? That's not what we're doing, right? And so I think that the accountability factor that Sark has put on the players to allow them, the way that I view Sark is and I want to make sure that I state this correctly, right? I'm not saying he is this person. What I'm saying is the similarities of what I see from him are similar to what I've experienced. And I would say that's Mike Tomlin. The thing that I loved about playing for Mike Tomlin was that he's going to hold everybody accountable, but then he's going to expect you as a man to hold yourself accountable. And I see Sark doing the same thing. When you talk to these guys and just being able to talk to some of the guys that I play with that are closer to the action than I am, being here in Dallas, Texas, man, these guys are locked in and these guys are focused. They're taking care of their bodies. They're taking care of their mind. They're putting in extra work in the film room. They're making sure that they have everything that they need to have to go out and execute. And we saw that last Saturday. So I would say the similarity is the accountability that the team has for each other, the love that they have for one another, and the desire to want to be the best. And I know that these are things that sound cliche, but you'd be surprised how I look at football the same way that I look at life. A lot of times we're in a school system that teaches us that the hardest answer has to be the right one. But in life, it's actually the simplest thing. Do the thing that you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. That's called discipline. Those guys have that. I think that accountability and discipline are the things that I'm seeing from this team, and I can't wait to see them this Saturday.
Hey, Bobby had, we were talking about your injury you went through, the ACL, the drop foot, and talk about what you had to overcome, because obviously Cedric Baxter just had major knee surgery, right? And we're not saying it's the same situation you had, but kind of for the people that aren't as familiar, what you went through to get back on the field, how scared were you were never going to get back on the field, and kind of what's in front of some of these guys that have those major knee injuries.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you're taking me back. So yeah, my situation was way different. It was more a nerve function type of situation. Very few people come back from. I think that when you think about the mentality of coming back from injury, correct? You're going to go through a lot of different functions in a lot of different places, right? You have to make sure that you hold your mind more than anything. Right. You have to make sure that when you're in that dark space, you're able to understand that there's a light and a joy that's set before you before the end of that. Right. So because of that, I think that the most important thing is to. Okay, hold on, baby. I'm on a meeting. Give me a second. I think that the most important thing is to. Yeah, I'm still the dad at the end of the day, guys.
I know the feeling, bud.
Love it.
Yeah,
We all do.
I think I think the most important thing is to make sure that you go into it with a strong mindset. And then again, it comes back to that discipline. What am I supposed to be doing today? Do it to the best of your ability. Understand it's going to.
Okay, I think we lost Tony. Hey, look, guys,
He's back.
I just hear he's back. He got back.
We're not gonna let the enemy stop this word, amen.
I love it.
So look, make sure that you're doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing every single day. You're supposed to be doing it. Fight that mental battle, and then understand that it's going to take your body time to heal. You can't push the river. So just allow your body the time that it takes to heal, and understand that you're going to come back stronger than ever. Like the biggest thing for these guys is not going to be overcoming the injury, because that's a warrior mentality. We are overcomers. That's what we do. The biggest thing is going to be trusting that everything is okay after you come back from the injury. That part is the hard part, because you're wanting to see, can I still cut and move the way that I used to? Can I still get that power from my hips and that drive that I had, right? And then once you have that confidence back in yourself, you'll be fine. So I think these guys, obviously it sucks, but that's the battle that they have this year. Their battle is not going to be on the field this year. Their battle is going to be off the field. Be the greatest teammate that you can be. Baxter, we can leverage. Let's leverage your knowledge. You've been around some of the greatest backs that Texas has had. When we talk about Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson, take that information and pour into these young guys, the Trey Wisers of the world, the Blues of the world. Pour into these young guys. Be a set of eyes and a confidence for them. That's how you're going to be able to contribute to the team as you're coming back to show what you can do from a physical perspective the next year.
Hey, Tony, I've got one last question for you before we let you go. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Steve Sarkisian's had 3 consecutive top 5 recruiting classes. He's aiming for a 4th right now. I want to ask you, why'd you choose Texas? Why and what is the similarity maybe? Because this is a situation right now where Texas hasn't done this well in recruiting in consecutive years, except for when you were part of it too. And so what were all the reasons why you chose Texas, in your opinion, and just trying to see if I can find any similarities between then and now?
I'm going to tell you this, Bobby, and I mean it 1,000%. I didn't choose Texas. Texas chose me. And I say that with all humility. I obviously, you wrote about us, and you'll have to invite me back on so we can tell the junior story. I'm not going to tell it on this one, right? But I had a unique experience when I was 14 years old to leave the country to play international basketball. I saw things from a different perspective. When I got back, I decided I'd pick up this football thing and became one of the top tight ends in the country. I had offers from all over the place. And the minute that I got hurt and people didn't see my value, there was only one man and one school that did. So for me, Texas is not just about ball. Texas is about seeing value in a broken person and saying, hey, you are more than just the thing that you do. We love the character and the person that you are, and we want you here. That's what Mac told me, and he proved it by keeping me on scholarship. So for me, when I got to Texas, it wasn't just about football. It was about me showing Mac that he made the right decision. I think that the fans in that place, Austin, Texas, is special, right? You're talking to a guy that played almost a decade in the NFL, and I will never have the same feeling that I have when I come back to Austin. I will never have the same feeling when I walk on the 40 acres and I walk into that locker room and I sing that fight song. And I recite the creed of the pride and the winning tradition of the Texas Longhorns will not be entrusted to the weak nor the timid. Like we embody that. When you look at this team and you look at what Steve has brought to the table, every person that you talk to has a blue steel lunch pail type mentality. That's the thing that made Texas great. We took this game as a blessing. We didn't take it for granted. Those guys They play like that. I think that, and I would be remiss if, and this is just me being biased, I think the most important person in that locker room right now, and like I said, this is just me being biased, but I think it's Coach Flood. And the reason why I say that is when you look at when Texas struggled, where did we struggle at the most? We were still bringing in quarterbacks, we were still bringing in running backs and receivers, but we were getting bullied. And now we are who we're supposed to be. We're the bullies. We're the ones that's setting the tempo. And we've been tried and tested. You hit us in the mouth, that was a good hit. Let me spit the blood out and show you my punch, right? That's what I see Steve has brought in from a team perspective, and then from a cultural perspective, man, embracing the guys that have done it before these guys. That's what Mac did. Steve does the same thing. So kudos to him. Kudos to bringing that mentality, that fan atmosphere. I see that as well. And like I said, I'm just excited to see where we go 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now, because if you look at it, like, we're still in that infancy stage, and look at where we are today. So now when we start to grow up a little bit more and start to understand our more of our type of players that we want, like he said something that was extremely important. We will never sacrifice character over talent. That tells you the type of man he is and the type of man that he wants. And I'm a big supporter of his and what he's doing, not just on the football field, but turning these young kids into men.
Tony, that's tremendous, bud. I think people in the chat are fired up. They're saying they want to run through a brick wall right now. One guy said, "I'll be right back. I'm going to go run through a brick wall," actually. Hey, Tony, thank you so much, man. Tell people what you're up to these days. Just give them a quick sense of that, and then we'll let you get about your day. But we do appreciate you. What are you up to these days?
Man, absolutely. Well, I can tell people, if you want to know what I got going on, follow me on Instagram at Tony the Tycoon. I'll give you a little insight, man. From these, obviously NIL is here. Wealth in the sports space is always important, but financial comprehension is lacking in that space. And so me with a couple of business partners of mine have started a financial company where we teach athletes the importance of money, right? And show with them different strategies to be able to not only invest their money in safe returns, but to also understand how to leverage money and how to use money to create the lifestyle that you want to set up, one that can be sustained after you retire from whichever sport nowadays, right? Guy, at this point, some guys are making more money in college than they are in the NFL. So that's the thing that we're doing that pays the bills. But for me personally, man, it's just pouring into these young guys and bringing subtlety and skill and knowledge that I've been able to garner over my time in the space, so that they can be the best, not only athlete, but person that they can possibly be. So I love talking to these guys and getting in the locker room and banging those weights with guys like that.
Tony, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate it. It was good seeing you last week or a couple weeks ago.
I got to ask Tony one more thing.
Oh,
you got to say,
you can't let it go.
No, because this is all from the chat. They want you on the show. They want you to keep coming back on. So I got to tell you, the Texas fans want you to keep coming back on.
Hey, man, if they want me, I'm here, brother. Y'all just tell me the time and the place. I'm going to show up.
Love it.
Hook 'em, Tony. You be good, buddy.
Now I'm forever cheering for Elsick and the Elsick-Hastings rivalry.
Sorry,
Rod
all right.
Sorry, Rod Wright.
There we go, man. I appreciate it. Well, he knows. We tapped him a couple of times when I was there.
Thanks, Tony. We appreciate you, buddy. Have a good one.
You. Have a blessed day.
Good luck this weekend. Have a good one, man. Blake, thanks for handling that interview with him and getting him in and out like that. Good. What a good guy. Just a lot of people saying, "Oh, so articulate. You should have him on more." I love it. Look, I'm just telling you guys, one of the easiest and best things about this job that we have here is bringing you guys that represent the University of Texas well. If y'all don't notice this, I mean, it's like everybody we have on is like that. I mean, Tony's a little bit different, even more articulate than the average guy, but every single one of them good guys,
Well,
and you can
here's the thing with Tony too. His career was almost taken away from him.
Oh yeah.
There's a different look at life after that, in football, in life. I mean, because football gave him a great first career. He's headed to a second career, but it was almost taken away from him before it truly got started. That's a different perspective for guys that attack it the right way.
Good stuff for sure. Okay, Jerry, it's your time to shine now.
Wow.
Tell folks about Manscaped. I know that's hard to follow.
He has to shine in such a different way, by the way.
The only way I can follow up that is, look, to tell you, I got the handyman on the road with me. Y'all know it. I take this stuff on the road. There's no BS with this read. It's the beard and balls bundle, baby. Fellas, do you want your grooming routine to be a one and done deal? Well, the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your private parts are over, thanks to our friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trimmed from 12 to 6, introducing the Beard and Balls Bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger, a trimmer for the moneymaker and another for the boys down scares. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code on Texas all caps at Manscaped. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code on Texas all caps at manscaped.com. For the premium grooming experience, trust Manscaped. And you know who else has the 5.0? The NCAA, because they've taken it to the Michigan program a little bit, and I think they're going to get another one out soon.
Oh, man.
Jim Harbaugh got a 4-year 5.0. No cause.
Jeez, he is sharpshooter. You are correct. Oh gosh.
Oh, Sark After Dark. Manscaped needs to free Micah Hudson. I love it.
Terrible.
Mike Hudson of 0 catches and 0 yards.
Oh, your Bobby Petronic is always great for the one-liners. Jim Trimbaugh. Love it.
Okay, y'all. We got super chats that we need to knock out real quick. So let's jump over to those. And we're going to start with the very first one we got this morning. Bixby Horn says, good morning, gentlemen. We all know that the pony package is a big part of Sark's offense. After seeing Jarek this past weekend, can he fill that role?
They didn't run that with him. They didn't do 2 backs with Jarek Gibson at all on Saturday. They actually made him a single back. It could be because he's young and doesn't understand all the intricacies of it yet. But that's something that we'll see whether or not Texas does it. They did run the pony package with Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue, though. So put that out there.
Then our next one, guys, comes from Travis Bingham. Thank you, Travis. Why is Golden still under the radar? He was the best player on the field last year, and we can see why Sark prioritized him. How did he end up at Houston? Jerry?
That is a great question. So, I first saw Matthew Golden when I went to see Jaden Blue at Klein Kane. And this was late spring, Blue's sophomore year. Went to track meet, went to spring practice. And I'm here to tell you, so Matthew Golden is originally from Florida, I think St. Petersburg area. Moved to the Houston area in 7th grade, I want to say it was, 6th or 7th grade, something like that. But look, he's a guy that there was a lot of really good wide receivers in Texas that year. And Matthew Golden, I think, was overshadowed by some of those guys. It's kind of like I've talked about defensive line, this defensive line class in Georgia in 2025. They all can't be ranked super high because there's so many of them. But I'm just here to tell you, that class is loaded. So Matthew Golden was in one of those wide receiver classes in Texas that year. And look, I was part of rankings at the time, and we had Golden, I think, top 150 in the country, because after seeing him play, I was like, I'm not sure he's not the best football player on that team. And Jaden Blue is really, really good. But Matthew Golden was one of those guys that played wide receiver. They'd line up a Wildcat quarterback. He'd be the return man. I think he even punted for them. He kind of did it all, and did it all with a physicality and chip on his shoulder. But here's the thing. Was he dinged because he wasn't as tall as some of the other highly ranked guys in the class? I mean, he ran 10.8. He long jumped, I think, 22. He put up all the numbers, but I think it was such a deep wide receiver class that he tended to get overlooked nationally, because it really came down to him. For him, Houston Arkansas and Wisconsin, if I remember right, maybe TCU. Texas offered him late, but I'm not sure it was an offer and push type of situation when he was already committed to Houston. But it came down to Houston, Wisconsin, Arkansas, and TCU, if my memory is correct. And I always walked away from that saying nothing against those programs. He's better than that, and I'm glad he's proven that out.
You mentioned overshadowed. That's the same class as Evan Stewart.
That's right.
And so a lot of fans were hyper focused on Evan that year.
All right, guys. One other super chat that I want to read real quick here is from Maddie. Thank you, Maddie, for the super chat. Good morning and hook 'em to the best Longhorn football coverage team, bar none. Hey, Bobby, I totally agree with you on Wingo. Star now will be Supernova by third year as a Horn. I ordered my Wingo NIL personalized jersey. Hook 'em.
Yeah, I love it. There are times when you just see guys and you kind of get it and know it. Jerry, you may have seen a linebacker yesterday that you feel similarly about, right? Sometimes you just see guys, and I think the very first practice I watched Ryan Wingo, everything was effortless, and it was done with speed. He caught everything with his hands. He is big. He didn't look like he was fragile, like he played physical. I don't know where his career is going to end, but as long as he's relatively healthy, it's going to be in the NFL. And somebody asked me who he reminded me of, and I said this a long time ago, and Jerry and I talked about it. The guy that he reminds me of that I saw personally in high school, relatively right at the same time, and I don't want to put this kind of pressure on the young man, but he reminds me of Andre Johnson. I mean, I went down to Miami to see Andre and another number of other 5-star caliber prospects back in the day. And I just remember having the same sense with Andre. No nonsense. Ryan Wingo's no nonsense in practice, but he's not like some of the other guys will do little dances and do a little twist running back to the huddle. Ryan Wingo's go score the ball, go back to the huddle, go back to the line. He doesn't. I mean, it's not that he's not having fun. It's just no nonsense, big, physical, natural receiver. That's what I think of him. I don't know if he's going to be as good as Andre Johnson and wearing a gold jacket one day. I just know if he just keeps after it and keeps his head right, he's got a hell of a chance, man. Hell of a chance.
Hey, Blake, I want to hit a couple of questions that's popped up in the chat that I did not address, but I should have in our recruiting segment. Okay, so Scott Knudsen asked this because he came into into OTF a little late today. The name of the linebacker is Tyler Atkinson, Grayson High. His first 3 games are up on Huddle. Teammate of Nick Brooks at Grayson and Joseph Mbakchu, the 2025 D-line monster that Texas just offered. Zane Petty, and I should have mentioned this, I did not. Kelshawn Johnson is telling people he's going to a Texas game this season. I talked to Kelshawn 5 minutes before we came on air. By the way, he's been out with a little bit of a toe injury. I think he's playing this week. But he is not – people at Texas staff are talking to coaches at Hitchcock. I do think Kelshawn will get on campus for a game this season. I think Texas is more in touch with the Hitchcock staff right now to kind of see where that recruitment's going to go with him committed to A&M. But I do think there's a good chance he'll show up at Texas for a game this year.
And one other one while you're at it that just came through, Jerry. It's a quick one. Cody Hook, do we have a Michael Terry date yet?
We do not. I've not heard that. I believe he may be up at Nebraska for the Colorado game this weekend. Probably at Texas here coming up in 2 or 3 weeks. Late September, early October, but there's no specific date yet. This one's been – the timeline's moved a lot throughout the season. At one point, he was thinking January for the Adidas All-America game, even though he'd have signed before that. But we haven't heard a specific date. But CJ and myself keep hearing maybe sometime later in September, could push to early October.
Hey, by the way, the Nebraska, Isaiah Nayor had a whale of a game.
Yeah.
The Texas transfer. He would have fit in really well. He got injured and lost his shot kind of when Texas brought in Adonai Mitchell. But he had a whale of a game. He's a future NFL player. Isaiah Nayor is. Hey, I want to say this. We get emails and stuff like that all the time. But I got to tell you, two of my buddies are actually doing the ultimate adventure. And I got to bring up this phone. Space City Wrangler, Bobby, we're rolling into Texarkana, hitting Whataburger, day one of Neil and Arthur's excellent adventure. They sent me this morning. That's 5 a.m. in Houston. They're driving up to Louisville. Listen to this sports adventure for a weekend. They're driving up to Louisville today and going to spend the night in Louisville. And then they're going to Cincinnati tomorrow. They're going to catch the Astros in a 1 o'clock game in Cincinnati. Then they're driving up to Ann Arbor, going to spend the afternoon on Ann Arbor, go to Zingerman's Deli in Ann Arbor. Then they're going to watch Texas, Michigan Saturday. On Sunday, they're driving down to Indianapolis to watch the Texans take on the Colts in the season opener. So they've got a full couple of days ahead of them. Be safe out there, guys. I know that they're listening in on the show on the drive, but Arthur, Neil, you guys be safe. A lot of Texas fans, by the way, making the pilgrimage to Ann Arbor this weekend. I don't know how many different people I've talked to, but I think that Texas is absolutely going to represent very well in Ann Arbor. I talked to Doug Karsh. I mentioned that, Jerry. He said this is the toughest ticket. Doug Karsh, if y'all didn't hear this, is the radio play-by-play guy for the Michigan Wolverines. He is like their Craig Way. I talked to him yesterday. He said this is the toughest ticket he has seen from a Michigan opponent, because Ohio State fans don't even try typically, right? They're not getting Michigan Ohio State tickets, but this is like a really, really expensive ticket for Michigan. Not surprising.
You know, it's a big game when they bring up Derek Jeter to be the honorary game captain. Okay, they're bringing up the Yankee Clipper to be the honorary game captain. Obviously, Derek Jeter's from Michigan. But hey, by the way, Cody Hook has a recruiting question, but I'm just going to use this. Any recruiting on DJ Sanders? Can we get a flip? Look, I'll say this: Texas has offered 3 new defensive linemen in Georgia. And I'm telling you, I saw Joseph Mbakchu yesterday. He's a Florida commitment. That I don't think he'll remain that way. He's going to be in Austin the 21st. This guy his upside's about as high as anybody in the country, a defensive line. Not that it sound Mac Brown there, but he since the season began, this is his first year playing football, guys. Auburn, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, USC have all offered him. Okay, that's a guy that gives you Chris Jones vibes. A guy that wasn't on the radar, Bobby, as a national recruit headed into his senior season, and then he ends up being, when we were at 24/7 Sports, our number 2 ranked player in the country. And I'm not saying Bakchu's there because he hasn't played as much football as Chris Jones, but his recruitment is that type of vibe. Because Chris Jones was hidden by Mississippi State. He didn't go to camps. He wasn't a kid that was on a radar. Then boom, here he comes. Okay. And then Alabama's trying to flip him, and Ole Miss is trying to flip him from Mississippi State, and Georgia, and everybody came in on Chris Jones' senior year, but Mississippi State held on to him. That's the type of recruitment we're looking at.
Yeah. Chris Jones is the all-world defensive tackle that is probably going to wear a gold jersey, or a gold jacket someday for the Kansas City Chiefs.
So I wanted to segue into this. We're going to bring up Walter Mathis's huddle again. This is not senior year. This is junior year. So David Rawls asking about Walter Mathis. Walter Mathis at Savannah Country Day. Texas has talked multiple times with this guy. I'm here to tell you, I don't care where he's ranked nationally. This is a bad dude. This is how many D linemen there are in Georgia this year. He visited Clemson. There he is, 85. He visited Clemson.
He knocked out 3 people in one play.
And he's ranked a 3-star. It's criminal. This guy's ranked as 3 stars, criminal in our industry, guys. Get it together out there. Look, this guy visited Clemson, Tennessee, Auburn, Clemson, Miami, Auburn, and LSU in June. Okay, this dude is a bad dude on the football field. He's about 6'2", 285 right now. Texas had multiple conversations. I think a visit could happen. This is what you want, guys, right here.
All that from a question about DJ Sanders.
But that's hey. So I just put up an article on OnTexasFootball.com. I called it the smorgasbord of defensive line recruiting notes. This has got this. He's in the article. Caleb Bell, the Arkansas commitment at Milton High in Georgia's mentioned. There's a lot of guys mentioned, and the net is expanding as we talked about yesterday. And I love the way the net's expanding. I also put a list, guys, in this article on TexasFootball.com. All the P4 defensive linemen in the state of Georgia this year. There's 20 that are committed to P4 schools right now. 20 D linemen out of one state. Georgia's the state you want to offer kids in because there's a lot of guys that are under-recruited, that are under-ranked. When you have a class like this nationally or in a state at one position, these guys aren't going to all be ranked high. They're not all going to be nationally recruited because there's 3 5-stars in this state. Okay, so there's all these guys getting all the attention, and the guys that are must-get recruits for Georgia, then some of these other guys aren't going to be as highly recruited. Then you had Nick Saban retiring from Bama, and that change. I'm just telling you, this state is – I love that Texas offered 3 guys since the start of the season. They're on Walter Mathis now. Again, they offered him but didn't get any traction early on. These dudes – they're all dudes, man. Just telling you. I've seen them. I'm seeing them on this trip, guys.
Okay, guys, I need to tell everybody out there about HelloFresh. And gotta love HelloFresh. You get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. With summer in the rearview mirror and football season ahead, now is the perfect time to save time and money when it comes to your dinner routine. Skip the meal planning and grocery store lines with HelloFresh's convenient doorstep delivery and pre-measured ingredients. Life is busy, y'all, real busy. And the next few days, I got 5 games to attend between my kids and high school football, so I don't have a lot of time to cook. But HelloFresh is so fast and so simple that it works great for me on weeks like this, and I promise that it will work great for you too. And here's the best part. They're going to hook y'all up with free breakfast for life. All you have to do is just go to HelloFresh.com/free-on-Texas. You're going to receive 1 free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to HelloFresh.com/free-on-Texas. And that's HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Okay, we got more super chats, more questions, a lot of everything. And I want to actually bring up this question from the OnTexasFootball.com board. And, well, that's a little small, but I'll read it to y'all from Realist Horn. He says, anything the Texas coaches can learn from Bond or Nyblack from their game against Michigan last season? I'd assume they would know the scheme and players fairly well, spending several weeks preparing for them.
You know, that's a good question, but I don't know. I don't know that receivers are the best people to ask. No offense to receivers, but I think what you see from defensive backs is more easily discernible on film than it is on the interior line, if that makes sense. The outside guys are very easily depicted in what they're doing. And so Steve Sarkisian can see what they're doing, whereas what's happening on the interior is a little bit different. It's still discernible, but I don't know that that's going to be a factor. It's a good question, but I doubt it's got much impact, if any.
And then we have a super chat, fellas. Ooh, excuse me. Trying to see where we left off here. Oh, Major Alexander. Texas by 19 points going into the 4th. Hook 'em. Bobby, you winced a little bit at that one.
I'm all for it, but bring it on. That's what I have to say. Bring it on.
And then Jerry's Jack Links kind of on the same note here. If we beat Michigan by 20, do we jump to #1?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think so either. I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to unseat Georgia when they looked as dominant as they did in the second half, in particular against Clemson. But look, if we beat Michigan by 20, I think tells Texas they're getting ready to probably go to the college football playoff. I mean, because that is a convincing win, intersectional win. I think that would be the type of win that would maybe get you to the playoff even with 3 losses. I'll just put it that way.
And then one other super chat, fellas, going back to the Colorado State game is what Jack wants to do. Thank you, Jack, by the way. He says, quick comment. There's been very little discussion of how well we tackled in week 1.
This is a great point. Sark mentioned it in the press conference. You know how many, and I asked Rod about it, and Coach Shipley and Coach Irwin for yesterday's show. You know how many missed tackles Texas had on Saturday? 3. And Jerry, remember, we would count 11 and 12 in a game. And Bob Shipley said, or Brian Irwin said, I've seen 3 missed tackles in a single play before from Texas. But 3 missed tackles overall is terrific. I do believe this as well. A large part of that has to do with the athleticism of the defense as a whole. You miss fewer tackles, the better athletes you have on defense. And that's what Texas has right now. They have better athletes.
Okay, our next question, guys, comes from Jose Rodriguez. And Jose says, Jerry, was Kenny Baker the answer to our Georgia recruiting? I feel like that's where we need to have our next few recruits from.
Well, I do like more offers in Georgia and Florida moving forward, but I think the short choice Baker combo is key in Georgia. I think Tashard was working alone in the Atlanta area. That's no man's land. I don't care how many connections you have. When Georgia's on top of the college football world and the schools closest to the Atlanta area where kids go are Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Tennessee. That's tough sledding and recruiting now in Florida State to the south, right? That's tough recruiting. That's tough sledding. So I think you have to have multiple feet on the ground in an area that I think the greater Atlanta area, maybe the most talented area in the country right now for high school football recruiting. So you can't just have one guy in there. You got to have 2 guys with relationships. Kenny Baker's from the state of Georgia. His dad was a high school coach in Georgia. So I think that helps moving forward in the future for sure. The key though to me is it's different than recruiting Florida. So Tashard Choice, obviously, he was big in getting him and Kyle Flood getting Peyton Kirkland to Texas, which was big in recruiting at the time. But then Tashard had running back recruits, right? I mean, guys where he was hyper focused on for a long time, Cedric Baxter, Jarrett Gibson. In Georgia, there's, Texas Kenny Baker hasn't really had time yet to kind of be hyper focused on some kids. And there's so many defensive linemen in Georgia that you have to cast a wider net. You have to know that the difference there is difference in recruiting running backs is you may have to offer 10 of these guys, 8 to 10 of these guys combined in Georgia and Florida to get 4 on official visits to win 1 or 2 of them, maybe get 6 on official visits. So it's different because you got to cast a wider net. But I do think recruiting in Georgia moving forward is much better opportunities with Baker and Tashard Choice working the Atlanta area. And I think Texas needs to get into South Georgia more, by the way. There's a lot of talent in South Georgia.
All right, our next question from Brendan here. He says, are y'all going to have a Michigan beat writer on at some point this week? The answer, yes. On Friday, we're going to, and every week going forward, we'll have a beat writer on that covers whatever team Texas is playing. So there you go.
We'll also have that interview with Doug Karsh posted on Texas Football today, too. So we'll have a couple different things. This is such a big game, guys. You can kind of feel and sense the excitement around it. I'm getting on the road tomorrow to get up there a little early. It's one of those games that doesn't happen every year. Although Chris Del Conte's lined up the schedules to kind of make it happen. Alabama last year, Michigan this year, Ohio State next year. I'm excited about where everything is headed as it relates to. Hey, here's something else, Jerry, that I wanted to ask you guys or mention, and it ties into what I was talking about with the number of missed tackles. Patrick Page made a good comment here. The goal this season for PK, if you remember 2 years ago, what his goal was, it was better on third down, better on fourth down, and more interceptions and turnovers. Well, this year, Jerry, he said this, the goal for this season was to get guys on the ground when they made the catch, not allow the big run for catch like they did against Amari Niblack a year ago or Savion Williams at TCU in those games. And, you know, Patrick, maybe there's some truth in that they've kind of paid attention to that, and that's a big deal for them.
I want to say this too. What's making this hyping this game up even more now, I think, and I really believe this is, if you're Michigan, what are you being told all week? Oh, you're a touchdown dog, man. Texas is going to come up here and beat you. Everywhere they look, they're hearing Texas is going to win in their house. They haven't lost a game in 20. They've won 23 in a row. There's been some really good teams that have come up there and left with L's. And now they're being told all week they're going to get their butt kicked. It's a great spot to be for a Saturday college football game when it's two blue bloods. I mean, that Michigan's going to have a very, very physical and inspired effort Saturday because the media is actually pushing it more now than ever before, saying you're going to get your butt kicked.
Okay, before we move on, and we got time for just one or two more things. First, Bobby, can you let everybody know about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm?
Yeah, absolutely. Wednesday's Coffee and Football brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. All you have to do if you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind is to reach out to Adam and his team at loweylawfirm.com. Adam and his group have 20 plus years of experience helping folks out. If you call them, you will get a free consultation, no strings attached. Again, loweylawfirm.com. Thank you, Adam, for your sponsorship of On Texas Football.
So I wanted to bring this up. By the way, you can read this King Me super chat first.
I will do that. Then we'll close on your video. So, well, actually, we got a one here from. Oh gosh, let's do King Me's first. King Me, thank you for the big super chat. I didn't see that one. Thank you, Jerry, for bringing that to my attention. King Me says, celebrating my birthday. Looking back, when was the first moment Sark had you believing he was the right hire to taking Texas in the positive direction?
When he got to 8 wins in year 2. And Bobby, from a recruiting standpoint, when they didn't give up on their top targets in recruiting and go to a B list of guys in year 1 in recruiting, that slows your process down. But it's going getting to 8 wins in year 2. They had to make the 3-win jump. And the hardest thing to do is to get the players in the locker room, they call it culture, to get the thing turned in the direction you want it, then getting those guys to believe the message. Because when coaches are hired, they come in with a vision. That vision's got to turn to reality. And then when it begins to turn to reality, all the people in the locker room that said, you know, let's see about this guy. Let's see about this staff. We like what they're hearing, but we've been through this. But when you start believing it is when things change. And that's no different if you go take a high school job and they're 0-10. And maybe they don't have the best talent. But if you can get those guys believing they're going to win and believing what you're saying is leading the wins, it's amazing what can happen. And that plus the way Texas has recruited for me. If Texas had just dropped down and gone to B list of guys in recruiting in that 22 class, that would have been a longer build, Bobby.
All right. So this is going to be this is a great super chat, and we appreciate you, King Man. Happy birthday. It goes in phases for me in this question. So believing is a little bit different. I thought we saw glimpses, Jerry. I go back to when he first hired his staff. Okay. He brought in guys that could recruit. He brought in guys from Alabama, and he brought in a defense coordinator, Pete Kwiatkowski, that had handled the other side of the ball before. Okay. So I thought he did a really good job from the outset at staff construction. I do not think Charlie Strong did a good job initially, backed into a hire of an offensive coordinator in Sean Watson. I do not think Tom Herman did a good job. He just basically brought his entire staff from U of H, who had no experience recruiting on a macro level like Texas, the Texas job. I thought that was the first positive sign, okay, when he was at Texas. But that's not making me believe. You still have to go out and do, right? First year then, Jerry, in the first halves, he made Casey Thompson look like a world beater in about 4 games, literally. And you and I both know and knew Casey Thompson, not an elite quarterback. But that game against Texas Tech, that first, 35 points in the first, 15 or 20 minutes of the game or whatever it was, I was like, holy cow, this offense works and translates to the Big 12 also. So that was even though the season ended up 5-7, I was like, they got to do. Then to your point comes Kelvin Banks and then all those guys. But the big one for me in that class was actually Quinn Ewers. Because when he got his quarterback is when you knew it wasn't just an Alabama thing of him getting his quarterback or a USC thing of him getting his quarterback. He got his quarterback. And then that wheels got going. And then finally, to Jerry's point, I think 8 wins. And maybe the time that I believed more than anything, when I knew he had figured it out a little bit, is when he just ran the ball down Baylor's throat.
Yeah.
That told me, okay, the magic tricks are out. Let's just go run the ball down somebody's throat. And they were able to do it. I was like, that's when I literally said, okay, he gets it. He just literally took the ball out of his quarterback's hand. He's an offensive guru, quarterback guy. And he just jammed it down Baylor's throat to secure the win. That's when I personally was like, that's the dude. So now, did I know he's going to go to the playoffs next year? No, I did not. But believing that he's the right guy, yeah, that was the game, because I felt like he did what he needed to do. He put his star players in a position to win the game. Good win.
By the way, this can never be forgotten when you're changing a culture. Ralph Neely said Bo Davis's bus rant. He's no longer here, but I'm here to tell you that was a big moment. There's big moments that happen when you're trying to turn a program. That was one of those big moments. Now, obviously, he's one of the most hated guys, but because he went to LSU. But that was a big moment. I'll tell you, the other crazy thing is, to me, so y'all know I'm in Georgia. I'm on the road this week in the Southeast, and that Arch Manning recruitment was really big.
Oh, huge.
I'm just here to tell you that, and the crazy thing is he's not even starting until next year.
Yeah.
But the perception, I'm telling you, I'm at Grayson High School yesterday. I'm watching practice, and there's 3 players' dads. All their dads, they're there watching their kids practice. They're all Division I players, and that's what they were talking about. That was a massive recruitment from a perception standpoint nationally and in the Southeast region.
All right, we got one other super chat. This one here from Izzy True. And Izzy True, thank you for the super chat. Said Hurton, Michigan is 2-6 all-time playing top 4 teams. So I did some research while y'all were talking. I can tell you that they had 0 wins versus top 5 teams before beating before beating Ohio State in 21. So then they also beat them again in 22. They were a top 5 team. And then, of course, in the playoffs last year. So they have a little bit more than that, I think, now. So that stat's a little skewed or old.
Yeah, and your record against top 4 teams historically is probably going to not be good if you're not a top 4 team yourself, right?
Hey, and by the way, here's one thing I want to say, because I think we got one more video to end on, because I wanted to play this today for you guys since I saw the kid yesterday. All right, this is Joseph Mbakchu, guys. First year playing football. Look at the power. 6'4.5", 280. Look at the arm length. Look at the hand size. Look at this power naturally. This is a dude. This is why it's giving me Chris Jones vibes, guys. I went and saw Chris Jones at Houston County. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Fame football player. This is 6 months into him playing football. This is a very raw guy. That what's he going to look like a year from now? What's this guy going to look like in a year?
It looks just like me when I used to hit the sled.
Sure.
I'm telling you, look at the agility. He moved to the States from Cameroon when he was 6. Look at him just blowing through on PAT. And he played soccer and basketball. First year playing football. This guy has a real chance. There's a reason why this is his first year. He's played 3 high school football games in Pats, and he's a rotational player. There's just starting to mix him in more on a very talented Grayson team. There's a reason why that video right there, since the season began, Auburn, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, USC, South Carolina, they've all offered him. This is why we can't rush the recruiting process, guys. And I'm not sitting here preaching on this, but there is still senior risers in this country. There are kids that are still coming into football late from basketball, soccer fields, whatnot. And I'm just telling you, being in Georgia right now, there's a number of defensive linemen in the state that are really good, really under-recruited. Now, he's now on the national radar, and I'm here to tell you this is why y'all hate the term recruit through the whistle, but it's also evaluate all the way through, man. There's a lot of tremendous players around the country. You just got to do your job and find them.
Hey, Jerry, in Texas, in your opinion, after visiting with him yesterday, has a legitimate shot here?
He's never been on campus, so I always wait to see until a kid gets on campus, right?
But he's scheduled to be on campus, right?
No, he's going to visit on the 21st with his defensive coordinator from Grayson, who's obviously knows Choice and Kenny Baker. So we'll see. I mean, look, he'll be at Auburn, he'll be at Georgia. Look, when I saw him yesterday, my thing with him when I was headed to Grayson yesterday, and I see Nick Brooks, see Tyler Atkinson, and my question on Mbakchu was I going to see a guy that I thought Georgia would end up saying, we got to have this guy, even a loaded class? I think he's that level talent. Does that mean they're going to get him? I don't know. But I don't think these are offers just being thrown out. I think LSU just offered, by the way, too. I think you're going to see every one of these programs that's offered make a real push for this kid. It's going to be an interesting recruitment because he has no idea what's coming in front of him with this recruitment. But he's going to visit Texas unofficially. I expect probably an official visit after that. It'll be a battle. It'll be a good one.
All right, guys. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. We want to thank them for sponsoring, along with HelloFresh and Manscaped. Thank you all for tuning in, for the great questions, super chats. Happy birthday once again, King Me. We really appreciate your super chat as well. Be sure to head on over to ontexasfootball.com. Become an OTF OG using promo code OTF OG. You get a full year for a little less than $40. You can't beat that. Head over there, join the discussion with us. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell so you're notified anytime that we go live, post content, whatever it may be. Bobby, real quick, anything people need to be aware of?
Yeah, I talked a couple different times about the Michigan play-by-play guy. We've got an interview with him. We've got State of the Program coming up. Myself, Jerry, and CJ sit down and talk about that. Michigan preview, a live stream tonight. Also, I want to say this. Thank you so much to Tony Hills for stopping by today. He was terrific. Really appreciate him joining the show and sharing his story with Longhorn fans everywhere. Good stuff.
All right, guys. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow morning. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.